this song is very interesting because you're talking about, God intervening in a matter that, when the enemy comes against you, the question you want to ask is, in this issue of party internal politics, who is the enemy? So many things, especially because there's been so many defections in the parties from one party to another, of late. And of course, we all know that that's not new. That's been happening forever, especially among the two leading political parties now, the APC and the PDP. Defection, various leadership tussle and controversy continue to play among party members, and it recurs over and over again, lingering year in, year out, and all of that. Earlier I think it was this week or last week, there was a conversation on Channels Television with a former governor of Bayelsa State who said, look, is this right? No, but that's what we have ourselves now, having to deal with. Let's examine some of the issues and how it affects you watching us right now, and how it will if we do not do the needful. Dr. John Ekundayo joins us this morning. He is a leadership researcher. Thank you for joining us today. We have Dr. Eunice Atanko, who is Chairman, National Conscience Party. He joins us along with Ahmed Busari, who is a former presidential candidate in our Abuja studio. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. All right, yeah. But, Dr. Ekundayo, let me begin with you. So many things have been happening. Governors have defected from one party to the other, from this party to... It's gone both ways.
You want to make it look it's so nice by saying they crossed carpets.
I think more have been to APC than PDP.
The point is, they moved.
Your sins are now forgiven.
We've heard that one. That's not my question. For me, there are those who say that it's easy for the parties to cross carpets, to use Alera's word, so easily because the lines of ideology are blurred.
You are right.
And then there are those who say there are certain interests at play for both the individuals and the parties. There are those who say, from what, drawing from what Alera just said now, that some crossed into the ruling party. They always have to cross into the ruling party to avoid certain, litigations. What are some of the things that you have found out as a researcher?
Thank you, Ayola. One thing I would say is I wrote this in my column last Sunday in the Nations, that really we have problems with the present political parties. APC, PDP, the most popular political parties, and others. Why? Because there are no clear ideas, ideologies, identities, and inclusivity. Now, when we talk about going back to the Second Republic...
Just before you go there, you talked about inclusivity.
Yeah.
In what way?
When we talk about that, because these are part of the reason why nations fail. And our nation is just almost getting there, socio-economically, politically, and inclusivity is about, really bringing into board all people of very professions, background, and the rest, from all nook and cranny of the country, so that they are together in making decisions in the way the party is run. You can see in the two parties now, impunity.
Well, you speak... Are you a lawyer?
I'm not, but I'm a researcher. Give it to me that I'm a researcher, so I read widely.
Just wanted to clear that out. Well, Dr. Tanko, you would know why some of these things happen. Being a politician yourself and having contested at various levels. What are some of the things that you think could be responsible for this crisscrossing? There are those who have crossed to one party and then crossed back to where they're coming from and stuff like that. So in terms of reasons, what would you adduce or as a reason this could be happening?
Okay, first of all, let us make a very clear view. We have a very flawed legal framework called the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act is supposed to be a kind of a pillar that defines how political contest and all is being established in the country. When the pillars is fundamentally flawed, what you have is what you are seeing as of today. We had an Electoral Act at a point in time which give room that if there is a faction being created within a party, individuals can move from one political party to another without any form of punishment. And that give room for this particular flagellism from, and then political nomadism from one political party to another. We have canvassed for a very long time, stating that that is fundamentally wrong. And the Electoral Act must clearly stipulate that once you move from one political party, you have a right to move from political party to political party, but there must be a kind of a reason when you move, you must pay the due punishment for moving from one political party to another. That will have deter people from moving from one political party to another. But that is not done. And that's the reason why majority of all will call on Mr. President to hold on to his assent on this particular Electoral Act, because we need to clear the system and make sure that the system is equitable, preferable, and acceptable to all. Let me also make this particular very clear position. It is important for people to know anybody that is joining a political party or a group of people must know these three, must be abreast with these three documents or four documents. One, the Constitution of Nigeria. Two, the Constitution of the party. Three, the Electoral Act. And four, the guidelines that instruct the political parties. If you are not well grounded with these facts, you may end up going into a political party without knowing actually what the rudiments are. Of course, there are issues like the manifesto of a political party and the rest of them. I give a clear example. For the party like mine, who is National Conscience Party, many people, when they saw me running for an election as a presidential candidate at the same time the chairman of the party, people questioned it and said, no, why can you have the two things at the same time? But the party was trying to encourage people to run, members of the party to run for election. That way, encouraging internal movement from the party. But if you don't know this coming out from outside, you would think probably one is usurping his own power. But that's not the fact about it. So these are facts you need to know. As a political interested person, you must know the rules and regulations within the party, and so that you will be able to, whenever you run into the party, you'll be able to run within the ambience of law and order. So as it is today, major problem we have is the legal framework which give room for people to run from one political party to another without recourse to any kind of punitive measures as against them. If now, that is done, maybe we'll have a better system.
Well, let's explore that a little further. Is there something that made that come to be in the first place? I mean, I would have expected that if the parties had unique identities, unique philosophies, that wouldn't even be something that anyone would want to encourage. What kind of recommendations should have been in that law that should have maybe forbidden one person from moving from one party to another? Because we have heard over and over again a number of people say, look, when you move from one party to the other as an elected official, you should abdicate your role. You should vacate your office. But that hasn't been happening. Is that the kind of thing that kind of a recommendation you are looking to?
No. We support strongly the idea that if you run on a platform of a party, you have the manifesto which you sell. I've always been arguing with a lot of people who say most of the political parties in Nigeria do not have ideology as of today, but that's not true. It is important to note that all the political parties derive their manifestos from Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It was carved in such a way that everybody will pick from that particular Chapter 2 and make its own identity known. So every political party, as you are seeing, has its own identity, has its own principle. But the fact is that whether it advance it or sell it, or that is the cardinal point you use in campaigning for election, is another different thing entirely. So as of today, what we have is that people take manifestos of one political party, run for election, win election with that manifesto, and then after they've won, they will not just position that particular manifesto and go into another political without abdicating their seat, without selling another new manifesto. So we advocate that if you are moving from a party, we didn't stop you, move. But abdicate your seat, sell another manifesto to the people, because what you are selling to the people is the social contract between yourself and the people. But if you run away from that particular social contract which you've already sold to them, and then you are taking another one, then it is very, very important for you to put up another, the manifesto of the party, and sell again to the people. So when you abdicate your seat, if you are popular, you will win. If you are not popular, at least then the next person will take over with a new manifesto. That is how it is done in a very standard democracy around the world. And many of the political parties that you are seeing that have not, you are calling them mushroom political party or smaller political party, have suffered this particular situation. We suffered the same thing in Ekiti. We won the state House of Assembly, and at the same time, that person left us and joined PDP, and there was no punitive measures, and then we were deregistered because of that particular situation. That is unacceptable. That is not way to grow a party. That is not a way to grow internal democracy. In fact, what it does is that it kills the morale of the younger political party who are aspiring to be bigger political party. If we have done so long before now,
Dr. Tanko. Okay, Dr. Tanko. Let me bring in Mr. Buhari at this point. Let me speak from the point of view of the electorate now. So, let me paint this scenario. You join the PDP. You campaign on that party platform. You win the election. And then a few months down the line, you move to the APC. Maybe in my area, we are a PDP people, and we voted for you, not because of you, but because of the party on which platform that you contested on. So you have left us in the lurch now by moving to the APC. You are representing us. We don't know too much about the APC. We voted for you because we understand the workings of the PDP. But now you have run away. What happens to us who voted for you?
Like we have seen many times how it happens with the electorate, the moment that particular candidate moves from that PDP party to an APC party, what we've seen happen is the entire electorate, the entire district, the entire community moves to that person to the other party. And that is why we keep saying we have a fundamental problem with how we identify ourselves with those parties. So I think what the electorate really pays attention to is whoever we have voted for, where does it want us to go to? You hear people say things like, we haven't decided which party we are going to vote for because our leader has not told us which party we would vote for. So there are people who have positioned themselves in the society that will tell their followers or their people that I haven't decided yet which party we're going to support. When I make that decision, then we can all move to that party. So again, when we look at all of those things, I know a lot of complaints come to the politicians, how they run their affairs, how they do the things that they do. But in most cases, I actually find faults also with the electorate and how they have been unable to stand their grounds to make sure that the people that they have elected into political offices, you know, respect them, obey them, and do exactly what they have promised to do for them. Because what we've seen clearly is the people are always quick to follow certain individuals just because they believe those are the people that can actually direct them around the political space.
Mr. Buhari, therefore, is that in this country, most of us, the electorate, vote for the persons, not for the party. So wherever he says we should go, we go.
In most cases, they vote for the party and the individual. But you know, when that individual owns the power, when that individual is seen as being in control of that space, the people just listen at that point. They are unable to now stand their grounds to say, you know what, you have actually betrayed us, and for those reasons we are going to stand against you. Check out all the people that have defected from one political party to the other. 90% of the time, you see the entire people in droves move to the new political party that this person has asked them to move to. And this is the situation on ground. This is the reality. And so when we try to make comparison with our political space and the political space in other climes, I say to everybody, this is the Nigeria political space. Let us deal with it. But fundamentally, I think one thing that is very important for us to do is to make sure that the internal political party structures and happenings are designed in such a way that they do not just make the political parties strong, but prepare the political parties to be sufficient enough to meet with the requirements of the Nigerian people, so that at the end of the day, we're talking about political parties that have been designed in such a way that because things are working right internally in the parties, it actually translates to better governance, it actually translates to ways that the dividends of democracy can reach the people. Otherwise, we will be having political parties that are just there to win elections and everybody goes home.
Okay, Dr. Fundayo.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be stringent penalties for people who cross carpet? Should the parties themselves put up stringent rules to deter people from crossing carpet, from defecting, so that if there are enough penalties, and if those penalties are strong enough, it will deter them from going? Because if, for instance, they say, if you go, you give up the position, because you got that position on our platform. If you go, you have to give up that platform.
Yeah, I believe there should be penalty, stringent one, because we have been having this running, from time to time. And like, the first person that spoke made mention of, yes, Dr. Tanko made mention of Ekiti State. That's my home state. And I knew NCP won that state assembly election. You see, but the question is, did the party, NCP, did they go to court? There's a need, I've been thinking about this, there's a need for parties to test the law about, because there was no faction in NCP. So why should that candidate go? So, and apart from that, what you are saying, the parties themselves should have stringent penalties, sanctions in place in their
So they should not wait for INEC. The parties themselves.
But the law that the Dr. Tanko just quoted says, according to him, the Electoral Act says it's not against the law.
If there's a faction. But even that is why the Electoral Act has to be revisited. I remember, most of the things that the wranglings on the Electoral was about electronic voting, electronic transmission. But there are still some salient issues. You see, especially like this, cross-carpeting. Look at what is happening now in Cross River with Professor Ben Ayadi. Now, the second speaker that spoke was saying that when you move, then your electorate will understand. You can look at the spate of resignation. Some people that were, they just left the government in Cross River. The next election, the center will not hold. Go and mark my word there.
But, before we get to that in the next election, while the center is still holding, it is disturbing that we're talking about internal party democracy.
Yeah.
The internal democracy within the particular party.
Yes.
In your opinion, if it wasn't wrong, you wouldn't want to get out of that party to another one, which may or may not be burning as well. Within the party,
yes,
there is a lot of wrangling.
Yeah.
Especially the leading parties.
Yes.
For you.
Yeah.
And from your findings.
Yeah.
What are the issues?
Now, Ayola, there are two perspectives. If I'm a member of a party, I'm a political party shifting, I am not elected. You see, we have to put this in context and in perspective. I'm elected based on social contract. Now, he was talking about, Dr. Tango was talking about manifesto. Now, I sold some things to the people. They believe in me. They bought it. We were in it together to do some things for them. And suddenly, I could see some internal wrangling in my party. And
that's the question. That's the question. Just before the jumping ship, what are the things that cause that internal wrangling? We're human beings, there will always be quarrels. But why is it that it's not so easy to resolve those issues as a party where we have we're supposed to have a united opinion?
Now, he talks about ideology. That was why I was going back to memory lane, the Second Republic. You see, when we have this, we have UPN, the Unit Party of Nigeria, we have MPP and all the rest of the APN. You see, the people knew what this party stand for. We knew it's a brand. It's like, Toyota. You know Volkswagen now, you know Toyota, you know Datsun. You see, they are brand. We don't have a political party as brand yet. And these politicians must know the reality. Whosoever they are acting out of impunity. They don't even follow the constitution. Look at what is happening in APC now. It's like seeing an open dish, and all of you are walking into it. You know, and you have sons in your party who are ministers, who are governors. You know, you have sons. So we are not a lawyer, and you can see this thing, and you are walking into it. And that was how they lost rivers. They didn't have any kind of river. Zamfara is there. You know, they lost out. You see, which other state again? Look at what's happening in Zamfara now, with the governor crossing to APC, and the deputy saying, I am not going anywhere. Because we won this, it was APC that won the election, really the election. It was technically the PDP, court awarded it to PDP. And that was why the PDP deputy governor is saying, I'm not leaving the party, I will stay. And it's already a debacle there in that state. So the electoral should be strengthened, number one. The political parties themselves should have penalties in place.
Okay. Well, Mr.
Especially for people on elective platform, because you have a contract with the people at the same time.
Well, let me ask Mr. Buhari, do you think we have a system in our polity, in our political system, to use the words of one policy, in the political industry, do you think we have a system that can discipline politicians?
Oh yes, there are systems that can discipline politicians, yeah? I belong to a group called the Progressive Youth Movement within the APC, and this is a group that we have put together that encourages, that tries to see how we can encourage more young people to get involved in the National Working Committee, to get more young people believing in the system, to inject new ideas into the space. But you see, the problem with our internal political democracy is that any time so to see a faction or a group of people are seen to be having a different opinion from whatever it is that the larger house has, you are seen as an opposition, you are seen as you are being sponsored, or you are seen as somebody who just wants to cause trouble. But you see, the beauty of democracy is that we will always have divergent views. We will always have views from different angles. And this is, like my friend Dr. Tanku would say, it's like free consultancy. By the time you have people that are coming with different views to you, it means that they're actually telling you that there are some things that we should pay attention to so that you do not make mistakes, so you can get things right. But we have constantly seen that one of the reasons why we've been having the issues within the APC party is because some people have actually highlighted some of the things your guest in the studio have highlighted. When we look at the Ondo rulings, the 4-3 judgment from the judges, clearly it goes to show that, look, if any other thing must have happened, we probably would have had a loss of the Ondo gubernatorial seats, you know, and people are just saying we are pushing caution in the air to make sure that we do not make mistakes. Many people have interpreted the situation from different angles. I am saying that whatever the case is, we have an interim caretaker committee chairman who is doing fantastically well. We've seen people decamp from other political parties into
Mr.
the
Buhari,
APC.
you're not quite addressing the question that I asked. My apologies.
Some of these internal problems have got to do with how prepared.
My apologies. You're not particularly addressing the question that I want you to answer. I know that there are times when there is what they call anti-party activities. And that, for the life of me, could be interpreted to be absolutely anything, including breaking a teacup. So now, is there a system in a political party, in the APC, for instance, beyond this anti-party activities thing, that says, no, you're out of line, get back on line? This is what the party stands for, so that there is that unity of purpose among the parties, as opposed to everyone pitching their camps and pitching their tents.
Of course, there are disciplinary actions. Of course, there are reconciliation committees. And of course, there are people who get expelled from the party, get suspended from the party based on their activities. But you see, the thing that can create that unity you spoke about is the leadership willing to listen to the people, the leadership willing to carry the people along, the leadership willing to sit down and say, okay, what are your grievances? Let's talk about them. I mean, as a leader, the last thing you should do is to actually think that you're larger than the people. They have entrusted you with that position, and you're expected to bring yourself down to them and listen to them only so that you can have all of them in the same place with you. I mean, the worst thing that you can do as a leader is to say you want to control the people who are not ready to be with you on the same path. Where are you going to take them to? Who's going to be following behind you? So again, you spoke about the unity, you spoke about the disciplinary action, or whether we have measures in place that can actually deter people from actually leaving political parties? Of course there are. We've actually seen people expelled. At the same time, some political parties are scared of actually touching certain individuals because they believe that there are huge individuals. For example, a governor has won a political seat in a state, and then you are now telling him that you want to suspend him from the party. You don't want to suspend him. You want him to remain in the party with you because you believe he already has a seat that he has won in your party. But then he's a PDP governor, and he's deciding he's going to move to the APC. What do you want to do? You want to suspend him? You want to expel him? Whatever you want to do, he doesn't care. He moves to wherever he wants to move to.
Dr. Tanko, I don't know if you have noticed that most defections are into the ruling party. Why do you think this happens? Wouldn't you rather stay in your party and become a formidable opposition party? We don't see that happening in the United States, for instance. Okay, the Republicans lost the election in the last elections, but they're still in their party. And they're doing all they can to be a formidable opposition party.
Interestingly, what really happened is just about greed, self-serving, and looking for a greener pasture to continue to move, jumping like a monkey, forgive me for using that word, from one tree to another because this particular tree is not fruitful. We are going to the next one which is fruitful. That is the reason why majority move at will. And as I've said earlier on, there is no punitive measure. So people just go in and you saw people who are patient enough in that party and take over their position. And that's what we have seen over the years. Because when you move, it's either you have an issue that you want to protect yourself and come into another political party so that you can be protected, or you want to move because you feel that you are not things are not happening in your older political party, and then you want to go into where the food is cooked. And those are some of the problems that we have seen over the years, because people are not moving because of integrity or because of building a party. They are moving in because they are looking out for something that they can benefit themselves personally, not the interests of the people in which they govern. So this is basically true. And the truth about it is that the fundamentals are flawed, completely wrong. Way back then, in the Second or Third Republic, what we usually have is that there is relative comfort in the society. Majority of people can take care of they can eat 3 square meals. So they own the party. What I mean by ownership of the party is that, as of today, very few members pay membership dues into a political party. So they don't own the party. They don't own the party. The few that own the party are either those who are in legislative offices, who are governors, or president or ministers. Those ones are the ones who are contributing heavily to the survival of the party. So they tend to dictate the pace in the party. So they say, he who pays the piper dictate the tone. So they control the apparatus of the party. So going out of the party becomes a difficult thing. Sometimes they look at it as if I'm going out, I'm going with my acquired wealth as against the interest of the party. People will try to find a way of bringing them down. Even the chairman of the party, is being looked at as if it's a niche, is benefiting from the largesse of what people contribute. And that is why it's so easy for a chairman of a political party to be removed from position of power, even when his tenure is has not expired, because he doesn't control the finances of the party. There are people who control the finances of the party. You have the godfathers, you have the infathers, you have the women fathers, you have the young fathers who have money. And they have put so much money into the party that if they say one thing, you as a chairman will be jittery. And that's not supposed to be. But if the people own the system, they are the ones that contribute to the survival of the party. They pay their membership due. They speak at will. They say what is right, putting the right peg in the right hole. Then you will see the system moving in. And of course, every political party has its punitive measures. And that punitive measure would be administered. Had it been that there are punitive measures for people who move from one party to another, you will have seen the reducer rate of how people move from one party to another. But because there are no punitive measures, people move at will. And so it is easy for anybody to check the manifesto of one party to another one.
Just 1 second. What you just said now cannot happen, because you are the one who quoted the law that says, the people have the right to move willy-nilly. They can go to any party at any time.
Come back whenever.
Come back. It's like you go to to market and come back and just stuff like that. But the question that I want to ask you, and maybe let's just hope that the president is considering that issue, just as you have said. But both of you, Mr. Buhari and yourself, Dr. Tanko, have spoken to the fact that there are superpowers, so to speak, in political parties. So can we then say that they are political parties when there are certain individuals that seem to be bigger than the party? Because, I mean, that's the sense I make of what you've just said.
Of course. Going back to what you said, yes, the law says that you cannot impugn on somebody from moving from one party to another. You cannot. But at the same time, there must be some punitive measures for you if you move. There are people you meet on the queue. They are there waiting. You can't just come in and then the laws will give, the party will put in place and the Electoral Act will put in place, say, look, if you are moving into another party, you can move, but then you cannot just take the platform. That's the key important thing. Somebody has been wanting to run for a governor. For years he's been queuing. Then because you have money and you just come and take over that particular platform, how do you expect him to feel? And how do you expect that there will not be internal wrangling within the party? There definitely will be. People will work against the person who come and just take this ticket without just in the middle of the night. That's just what I'm saying. Okay. So, but you can move. But you cannot just come and just take up the ticket. There must be, you must follow the line and people who have queued for a long time. And then for the reason, the issue of saying that people run away and then feeling uncomfortable or having issues or the party having issues. You see, the internal party mechanism must work at the proper time. You don't allow things to stay for a very long time. When there are issues within the party, you raise that issue and you deal with it immediately. Once you deal with it immediately, it gives confidence within the electorate, it gives confidence within the members of the party, it gives confidence within the entire system of the party. But if you allow it to linger for so long, it becomes a bigger wound that it becomes difficult for people, for leadership of the party to deal with. So in a party management, you must be able to find a way of carrying everybody along. Even those who become like godfathers, they come in. If you have rules and regulation and you put it on ground for them to know that because you come in because you have large money and all, it doesn't mean that you can usurp leadership of the party. It doesn't mean that you can take up candidacy of the party. It doesn't mean that you can determine who become who in the party. Once these ground rules are being mentioned, I can tell you most of the godfathers who move from one party to another will find it difficult to move because they know that there are rules and regulations. What we are having here is that we've polarized the system. We've allowed the Electoral Act to be put into a lot of questions where you open the door and say if there are factions, people go into a political party and create factions so that they can be able to take advantage of it. We need to take care of this. We need to clean that Electoral Act. We need to clean it in such a way that people will feel comfortable. And here, please, I want to advise that whatever things that we do, it is not for ourselves alone. It is for the
Dr.
future.
Tako, just one second. There are many of these issues that you have raised, one that you haven't spoken to, but we'll come back to some of them. Now, Dr. Kundayo, the problems are not just going to go away. We have to deal with them one way or another. One of the things that makes this conversation in particular interesting for me is that unless the internal workings of a political party are admirable and enticing, truly well-intentioned people may not come into the parties, and consequently well-intentioned people may not come into governance. How do we deal with this?
That's really, for me as a followership researcher, it's a thing that I bother my head on because I look at, just like Pastor Tunde Bakari had to say one time, the worst of us are ruling the best of us. And that is it, because the real people we have who are elites, who are well-read, who are professionals, they are not coming to the mainstream of politics because they look at the parties, they are the same. APC, PDP, whatever, NCP, they are the same. So, because they have not been able to, well, Dr. Tako spoke about they have ideas, they have ideology. They have in paper. It's a paper tiger. You see, like I said the other time, using the automobile, Toyota, you know Toyota is Toyota. You know Volkswagen is Volkswagen. You know Dassault, Nissan. You know the brand. You see, we have not really, our political parties, we can't see we can't see the thick line in between them. The lines are even broken. They are fainted, kind of. You see, so as long as followers begin to watch this, like you said, you see, but what can be done is let the people come together.
Which people?
The followers,
Electorate.
you and I, we can come together. It may not be the name of a party, Ayola. You know, I wrote this in my column last Sunday. Let's come together. You see, just like we have social parapo, social association, it will be a political pressure group. And then the politicians will respect us. Okay. We have our PBC, we just tell them, look, these are things we want. And there are, when you know the people talking there, they are professors, they are doctors, they are engineers, they are lawyers, you see, they are IT gurus, they are businessmen and women. And they just say, well, look, these are the things we want. And they know the number that they control. Because democracy is a game of number. But politicians know that you and I, most of us, will not even come out. There are parties there. The docility is there.
No, but Dr. Ekundayo, do you not think that that is changing? You know, when Dr. Tanko was talking out, my mind went back to what Dr. Pat Utomi, Professor Pat Utomi went through during the last elections when he wanted to be governor of Delta State. I mean, this kind of group you're talking about would be something that would appeal to him, for instance, because he has gone through the normal, in parentheses, process. And he saw that even before he was able to locate his polling station or wherever, the elections were over. He wasn't even able to vote. And he was in the election. He was a candidate in the election. I mean, that experience is something that every Nigerian should look at and say, do I really want to join one of these big parties? Is it really worth it for me? Or should I join one of the smaller parties and try to grow those parties if they see that internal democracy is actually working in those small parties?
I agree with you, Auntie Alero, because, you know, like the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was calling for a third force. Now, I align with that, but not as a political party, I will still say. Now, if there have been a group of people like that, we all know the values, the virtues that Professor Pat Utomi stand for, and have been standing for all these years, that mostly will have been, these people, we all vouch for him, and that can make us to vote if I'm in his constituency. If other people can just come and say, this man is coming up, now let's do the needful. But then there is this thing that most of our followers, you know, they are still docile, I would say that. And that is why you see, like this last local government election in Lagos State, I read something which is very interesting. A particular ward, a candidate came to that ward and brought in 500 NURTW members, mobilized them to come. And then during the answers, the youth were everywhere. We will burn this, we will burn this. You are not started. When my daughter joined, I said, look, you are wasting your time. You see, all ended in waste. The politicians know how to neutralize you. You see, because at the end of the day, you are not coming under any banner. You are not having any political pressure group. Talk less of people in a party. So it's a waste. You see, and as long as we have things like this, politicians know those people to face. The market men and women, the mechanics, the artisans, they'll go to them.
You spoke of a third force, a pressure group.
Yes.
But in our constitution, if you want to contest, you have to contest on the platform of a political party. So if your pressure group is not a political party, forget it. So to what end would you be setting up that pressure group?
Yeah, I will tell you this, Auntie Alero, and I will give you an instance where this happened in history, referred to in followership studies. Now, when you have people like this who are politically conscious, they will teach themselves, they will educate themselves, and the politicians are afraid when they see followers coming together, and they know that a change is looming. One thing that could happen is they could approach you. What is it that you want? What do you want? Okay, we want one of us to be bad. No, that is the way. It's because if you just sit down there, they are not bad. I mean, they are this, they are that. They will keep on in this recycling of, you know, dealership, as we call it leadership. It will keep on happening. Now, the example I want to give is in Germany. We read this in followership studies. You know, Adolf Hitler started as a follower. He was not even a member of the Labour Congress executive. He was just a member of a worker. And then he started speaking. One follower. The power of one follower. That's why I call it. He started speaking. And when they could say, this voice is becoming stronger, the Labour Union, they say, oh, you can be part of our executive. And he led the Labour Union of Germany. You can Google it. He led them. And when he started speaking to power in that country, they formed a political party, and the party won, and that was how Adolf Hitler became the head of that country, the chancellor. And
as we often say, the rest is history.
Yes.
But that history. Oh, no. Well, let me ask you, Mr. Buhari. We're drawing close to the end of this segment now, but you're a young man, and generally, you know, young people don't really like it when it's not really working the way it ought to work. They will speak. People don't have that patience for nonsense, if I can use that term. How do you see young people who are not members of any political party now coming in to make any significant difference when the internal workings of a political party are the way they are right now?
Thank you. I think this is important that we talk about very clearly. I belong to the progressive youth movement, and what we have said to every young person in this country is stop standing on the sidelines believing that the political parties are corrupt. Stop standing on the sidelines believing that the political parties do not have ideology. You have something to offer, you have something to give, come into these political parties, come in your droves, come in your numbers. Look, elections are only being manipulated because both candidates or the closest candidates are always very neck to neck with each other. So you can actually manipulate certain things and actually get a winner. But I'm telling you, if we can come in overwhelming numbers and sit within these political parties and say, no, we're not going to let it happen the way you want it to happen. We are members of this party and we insist for it to be like this. Otherwise, we go into a vote. After it's a democracy. But what you see young people do is they stand on the sidelines. And I disagree with Dr. Okunda.
One second on that issue. One second on that issue. You spoke about it the other time. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. You spoke about it the other time that sometimes powerful individuals within the political space, within the political party, influence things. What is it that you think? I mean, is it difficult for any of these powerful persons, the power perhaps being money, do you see any of them not being able to buy over some of these young people that you're talking about? How much does it take? $5,000 each person?
Ayola, who's going to buy me? That's the truth. And there are many like myself. There are many young people that gathered in Oba the last time that we could see that nobody could possibly buy. What are these people doing outside the space? They run businesses. Their businesses are only going to survive if they truly have a political structure or a political system or a government that is actually going to stand in their favor. What we are saying is clear. I also agree with Dr. Tony said there is a queue. Look, there are different things that political parties look for, especially when it comes to how they want to clinch to victory. When you want to clinch to victory, some of the things you're looking at is how do I possibly get the candidates that are going to sway the people. In every community you go to, there are popular people. You can actually say, swear an individual and say, come to our party, you have the popularity, you have the know-how, you're a great person, you just are not to the right party. If this party is going to say, okay, fine, we're going to give you a platform for you to contest, he moves to that party and is able to win the primaries, but why not? After all, there's a structure called the primary election within the political parties that can actually help you become the flag bearer of that party depending on the seat you're running for. So what we're saying in essence is this whole mentality of there is a queue, go and follow the queue, are part of the problems that these political parties are facing. It should be a level playing field. Whether you came in yesterday or today, the most important thing is, as the fact that you have become a member of a political party, you are free to contest for any political position within that party. And the apparatus that have been put in place by that political party are the apparatus that would actually help determine if you win a particular seat within the primary election to determine whether you will now go ahead and actually contest for the general election.
We're out of time. We're running out of time. Just a second. We're running out of time. We have
run out of time.
Completely run out of time, Mr. Buhari. But let me give Dr. Tanko 10 seconds to speak to the politicians who are strong and on the ground, what do they need to do to strengthen internal politics?
Well, they should just stop usurping the powers of the members of the party. And when I said queuing, because people have there worked so tirelessly, and you come because you have money and then you just take over their position. It is not good. It is not good. It is unacceptable in any democratic standard.
All right, well,
then,
clearly both of you are politicians and you know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
It's a for or against thing between the two of you, so it's well understood and well appreciated. But for now, we have to thank you very, very sincerely for being a part of our conversation this morning. Dr. Yunusa Tanko is Chairman, National Conscience Party, as well as Ahmed Buhari, a former presidential candidate and member of the APC, who joined us from our studio in Abuja. We also have had Dr. John Ekundayo, who is a leadership researcher. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
So, we continue after now with another issue. Do stay with us.